Welcome back here on Metal Nation Radio. I am Rustin Rose, a.k.a. the Metalholic himself, and I am joined today by Nina Asagueda, Jesse Keene, Chris Herron, and Josh Schwartz of A Sound of Thunder. So thanks for taking time. It's always fun to catch up with you guys. As you know, I'm already in love with the new album. So you guys had another very successful Kickstarter campaign. You literally have to be the most successful unsigned crowdfunding metal band out there at this point, which speaks volumes to your music and fan support.
Yeah, I have to claim egomaniacal self-googling there. I think we are. We checked it. I wanted to be able to claim that it was true.
I think on Kickstarter we are the second most backed project for a
project. Yeah, and the number one project is not a real metal band. It's like a webcomic thing with a fake metal band.
Maybe we're a fake metal band and we don't know it.
I could be one guy sitting on the side doing all these voices.
So with Tales from the Dead Side record, you guys sort of included the Shadow Man comic. This time you've gone with a full-blown graphic novel. Tell us about the whole idea and how you guys sort of brought this to life.
Well, on my end, it actually didn't really go back to Tales from the Dead Side as much as it went back to Lesser Key of Solomon. We did a big deluxe book with a painting for every song, and we printed it in a big 12x12 format, and just the idea of giving people something they can dive into at length, you know, do it old style, sit in your bedroom, put the record on, and sit there for the full hour and really get into the album. Offering some visual content to go with the record, we thought would encourage that. Those lesser key books were incredibly expensive to produce. So the comic, we spent a little more on the content, but they were a little cheaper to print, and I think it's a lot more content and even more exciting. So.
Our artists that work with us on this one are incredible. I'd shout out to all of them, but we're friends this time.
There's too many.
They're each one is feels like it has its own unique style to go on top of the song that we wrote for it. So it's thrilling to actually read. Finally, I actually got a physical copy in my hands about a half hour ago. So
this thing's been in the works for like a year and a half. We got the first finished pages last March.
And you guys are all sitting around now signing the comics and stuff today, getting ready for the launch of the new album, It Was Metal, which comes out on the 15th. I've made no secret that I feel It Was Metal is your best record so far. There's sort of this wonderful balance of the band's various light and dark elements with an emphasis on that driving energy with this one. And that was sort of the direction you all wanted to take with this record, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. This was supposed to be written as a I guess more fun, but definitely more up-tempo record than some of our previous stuff. Lesser Key and Tales from the Dead Side are fairly heavy, fairly dark, but I would like to think that this one is a little brighter and a little more upbeat than the previous stuff.
You kick it all off with that beast of a song. You got Mark Tornillo of Accept there on Phantom Flight, which is a brilliant way to open the album to begin with. It's weird to call it a duet with those two powerhouse voices, but that's sort of what you got. How did that all come about?
I asked.
You get this question a lot. It's like, oh my God, how did you get that person on your record? And the answer is usually we asked.
His wife, Sherry, is really cool, and we're friends, so I was like, hey, Sherry, can you ask your husband if we could, do a song together? So she asked him, and then we got together, and they came down for a weekend. We had some Korean barbecue and pushed out the song. That's pretty much how it happened.
Yeah.
We pushed
it out.
It was awesome. It was awesome watching Mark record. They did their parts on separate days, but so a little behind the scenes. We found out Mark's warm-up ritual. He carries a towel with him. He calls it his wubby. And his warm-up is he puts the towel in his mouth and he screams into it as loud as he can.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So you hear him in the corner of the recording booth just going. And 2 minutes later, he's ready to go. He gave Nina a little push, so we threw some Ian Gillan references were thrown around. He was like, "Should I scream here?" We were like, "Yes, scream, dude. Give us some Ian Gillan." And at one point, he had to harmonize or match a really long high note that Nina did, and he just gave us this nice stare. He was like, "Really? It's like that?" All right, here we go. And he did. He totally did it.
He is incredible.
Yeah, he's the man. And they were super nice, super generous, great people.
I'm excited for everybody else to hear the record. You guys have already given us a taste of 3 of the tracks off the record with Second Lives, Lifebringer, and, of course, El Segadores. It's a nice cross mix of sounds there. The El Segadores track has already brought the band some global notoriety for those of us who are unaware outside of your usual fan base. Tell that story because it's amazing.
So we wrote the song, back when we were writing the music, which was like, I guess 2 years ago now. And I just wanted to do a song for my mom. So it's like, let me find a Catalan song that's cool. And we found the national anthem. I think my cousin might have recommended it, but
Catalonia is the region of Spain, or a separate region that is not part of Spain, depending on who you ask, where Nina's mother's family is from.
Right, and I know she speaks Catalan, but the only time I ever hear it is when she's talking to, like, my uncles or my grandpa on the phone. So I don't hear it very often, but then I listened to the national anthem and I looked up the lyrics and I was like, whoa, that's super metal. So we made a metal song out of it. Then in October, when we were doing the Kickstarter, I saw they were having a referendum. So I tried to get Josh to put it out on the day of the referendum, but he was like, no, we're not putting it out for free, how dare you, And then all the violence and stuff happened, and I'm like, no, we should totally just put it out on YouTube, to show our support. He's like, look, you can get someone to do a music video in 24 hours to put it out. And so we did. We found our friend Vicky Ryder. She made a lyric video, and I was like, here, Vicky made a lyric video. He's like, fine. And then we put it out and it went viral.
Yeah, it almost didn't happen.
Almost didn't.
But the short version, the referendum she's talking about was a referendum for independence. The people of Catalonia were voting to be independent from Spain, and the Spanish government did not approve the election. They sent the national police in there. They beat a bunch of innocent people up, and that's what hit the news, which drove our decision, Nina's idea, to put the song out early, and that's when it went viral.
And then that took you guys across the pond for, like, a tour in huge venues. What was that experience like?
It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. The real cool thing was we had a lot of support. Nina's parents went with us, our producer Kevin, his wife, and Vicky and her husband had. So it was made much, much easier with those 6 people that helped us out so much. It was an amazing experience. The first show was literally a trip from the airport over to the Olympic Stadium, and we played one song in front of, I guess, 30,000.
50, we were told. 50,000 people.
We played the intro song, the one that El Seguidor was, and it was, calling it amazing is an understatement.
It was a bit of a trial by fire, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think the most people we had played for at that point was probably about 500, and then they threw us in front of 50,000.
Yeah.
So I had my diapers on.
That's 1% for people that are counting. And from then on, every show we did in Catalonia and around Barcelona, the response was incredible. The energy was incredible. So we're looking forward to going.
You guys also released Lifebringer, which is just this epic track at the top of the record there after Phantom Flight. It blends some power and classic metal influences together. Josh, you've even slipped some theremin in there.
Nina's giving me a dirty look. She plays the theremin live.
Oh.
I usually play it on the record, but she played it live.
Tell us about that song, because there's just so much. And you guys do this on all of your songs pretty much. There's so much more going on than just the simple, metal song. There's just all these elements to it, and that's one of them that brings so much of it together.
That one was a really good example of the mindset we were in when we were working on this record, because we just wanted something fun, and that one started with the verse riff, that galloping riff. We had it on our Tascam recorder that we just jammed it one day in rehearsal, and it felt really good. We were playing the songs back off the computer months later, maybe even a year later. Nina heard that old riff again, and she was like, that one, we got to do that one. She recognized the riff right away, that it was good. And I think it was her idea to do a song about a sword.
The lyrics were kind of hard for that one because I kept going too detailed into the story I was trying to tell. So at one point I just had to dumb it all down. I think it was like the day of recording.
Well, we had a draft. Yeah, Nina gets really into details and keeps everything very linear. And the songs that she writes, okay, Nina and Chris are our 2 lyricists. When Chris writes lyrics, he'll turn in. We won't see it till it's on its 6th draft. He brings us hardbound and gold leaf edition. So Nina will she'll throw her first draft at us, and then sometimes we'll go to the studio on the first or second draft, and so we usually do a little tweaking at the end. And we ended up throwing some political stuff in there, which is pretty obvious if you read through the verses.
Not more of a subject.
Yeah.
I'm not vague.
Nina's very direct.
I'm very direct.
So for the next album, you're going to have a song on all the things that Ambien makes us say, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. I'm like, man, I don't even need Ambien to shoot my mouth off.
Honestly, if you read the lyrics of Lightbringer and you look at the cover of the album, you get a pretty good idea
Where we're at.
Although the new thing is that the cover of the album, we can reveal now that it's only a few days away, is actually a look into the future of the night that the Caps win and or lose the Stanley Cup.
Oh my god. Don't even joke about that. We're not like DC is not what do you call it?
It's not
riot town. It's not a riot town. We're not Pittsburgh.
We don't know that. We haven't been in a championship in a while.
I'm not saying it happened.
I'm calling it right now.
Look, Las Vegas got their biggest celebrities out to do like the intro and do like the between the period talking about how much they love the Vegas nights and all this stuff. You know who we got to introduce the Caps last night? Pat Sajak. I'm not even kidding. And then
that's how not good at this they are. That's how long it's been.
Right, and then after the first period, you're supposed to get a celebrity who's like a big fan of the team, you know, and get up there and like hype it up. They got Kenan Thompson from Saturday Night Live, who doesn't have season tickets. He just happened to be in town with his family. So he was like completely blindsided, like, yeah, I guess I like hockey. Who's your favorite player? I like number 8. You know, what's his name? Ovechkin, that guy. You know, they're all great. They're all great guys. That's a great time. So apparently Linda Carter is a Capitals fan. I don't know why they didn't get her. But then just saying, like, we don't have a lot of actual, like, hardcore hockey fans in this town. We have a lot of fair weather fans and people who are like, yay, team sports. But there's not going to be a riot if we win or if we lose. If we win, it will be a good time. If we lose, we'll just be sad for another 15 years.
I'm putting in right now, they're saying there's going to be at least one overturned cop car.
I mean, we'll do that anyway.
Well, it's got to be pretty exciting, though. I mean, it's one of the most exciting Stanley Cup runs in the history. So
even if you don't like watching those games, it's super entertaining because you don't know who's going to score when. I've never watched games where people are like back-to-back scoring every period. So I think it's at least an entertaining time for people who aren't into hockey.
Now, I know you guys all love every song on the album, but you have 4 very diverse personalities. Do each of you have like a particular song on the album that sort of calls to you more than the others?
Mine might be Josh's at the same time, but Obsidian and Gold, I think, ended up being my favorite record, or my favorite track on the record. So
I would pick that just for selfish reasons. So when we started the album, I asked Nina for a favor. I asked her if I could do the lyrics and the vocal melodies for one. So that ended up being the first song I've ever written on my own completely. So yeah, I'm kind of partial to that.
What about you, Chris?
I would say Lightbringer, only because, just from the standpoint of drumming, it's a challenging song, and it's one I actually enjoy working to get.
He hates the rest of the record.
I hate the rest.
And Nina.
This is one of those records where I actually genuinely enjoy singing every song. But I like the one that stands out to me right now is Tamiris, just because like that's the kind of power metal song that I dreamed of singing when I first started doing metal. That's the kind of song.
It's such an empowering song for women too, when you know the backstory of it.
Exactly.
I like that one. It's a very cinematic song.
Yeah.
It's interesting you guys mentioned Obsidian and Gold at the start there. That's sort of that song that bridges the gap to the other albums there, like Lesser Key and whatnot, because it's got that more moody, sort of dark moving element to it, and it's just a beast in the center of the album. And of course, Tony Carey on it again.
Yeah, oh man, his organ brings that thing together. And he did some like synth sequencing stuff. He did actually a lot more than we asked him to do. Man, Tony Carey is a badass. If anybody ever gets a chance to work with him, he's a producer and a songwriter, plays like every instrument, and then is a badass lead. Like he can do killer keyboard solos too.
Dude, I got a keyboard credit on the same record that Tony Carey played keyboards on.
Do you guys find that challenging in a live setting, especially like when you guys went over and played those huge stages, because you have such a huge, full, rich sound because there's so much going on, then you guys have to get out there and try and replicate that with 4 people on a stage?
I don't think we stress about it or think about it. We do get a comment that we're a very different band live. You know, it's a little higher energy. You know, I play my parts differently live because I have to fill in for 4 rhythm guitars and lead guitar. But it's just a little more raw, a little more high energy.
a fan of ours in Germany said that that he wasn't sure how we were going to pull off live songs. Like, Time's Arrow is so full of keyboards, but in that one in particular, we just don't play them, and we get away with being three-piece vocals. So I think we do a good job of with not having keyboards in every song.
One of the things is that when we're rehearsing the albums before we go in and record them, we're writing and rehearsing with no keyboards most of the time.
Right.
I think Elijah was the only song that started with some keyboards before we played it in rehearsal, but we know if it's going to be good without keyboards before we go into the studio. I think if it was something that required keyboards to work, we probably wouldn't do it in the first place.
The songs being conceived without keyboards makes a difference. That way as the song progresses and towards both recording and live performance, then we already have an idea as a band as to what we want to live, how to present it.
Yeah, so like we were playing Lifebringer, for example, and Tamiris in rehearsal, and we had a good feeling about them. We knew they were going to be good. They felt good to play, and we went in and recorded the basic tracks, and it sounded good. And then usually somewhere towards the end of the process, me and our producer, Kevin Gutierrez, go down the rabbit hole and get completely carried away adding stupid sound effects and keyboards. It's too fun not to. So I feel like, especially Chris, like usually like you don't hear all the works in progress in the middle of the record, so you have like, you cut your drums to the scratch tracks, and then at some point, like 5 months later, you get a song that has like a fuck ton of organ on it for some reason. And you're like, what the fuck?
Well, and you mentioned Kevin, and he's done all of your albums so far, and he's now moved out of the area. How is that going to change the dynamic for you guys?
Well, we're definitely going to continue working with him. We're not exactly sure how it's going to work out logistically, but I think we're naturally at a point in our career right now where we can do an album every 2 years instead of an album every year. I mean, it's been pretty crazy just pumping these albums out one after another for the last 7 years.
Oh, yeah.
So, we might even do a series of EPs next that'll allow us to just do like 4 songs at a time. They'd be part of a piece that might go together as one package later. But yeah, it's definitely going to affect things. But I mean, us and Kevin, that's the dream team. So we're not going to break it up.
You alluded the other day that coinciding with the release of It Was Metal, there's going to be something going on with the title track. What's coming up for fans here with the launch of the album?
Well, we have I hesitate to call it a video, we have an animated adventure, which, featuring Udaroth, our mascot from our previous animated adventure. And, we took it a little farther this time. There's, some like dialogue scenes without music, and then there's a full music video. We've got some new characters, and we have a celebrity guest voicing one of the new characters that I think people are going to flip out over.
And this is all launching with the release of the record on the 15th?
As of right now, that's the plan. Animation is that's a process, man. It's like, they've been working on this video since December, and it's almost done. So, yeah, I think we're going to release it on the 15th. That's the plan.
Awesome, guys. Again, thanks so much for taking the time. The album is fantastic. I look forward to playing all of it. And if the whole band doesn't know yet, Saxon, Mastodon, Megadeth, Lamb of God, Judas Priest have all been our Artists of the Month through this year. You guys are our Artist of the Month for June, so we're going to be playing the hell out of you all month long.
Wow. Thank you, Rusty. Thanks, Rusty, man.
Absolutely. You guys have a good one. I'll let you get out of here, and congratulations again on a fantastic record.